Ladies and gentlemen, there is a version of you right now that is quietly destroying your future. It's the part of you that hesitates when it should act, that complains when it should create, that makes excuses when it should push forward. And unless you end that version of yourself, it will bury every dream you've ever had. But here's the truth. Your strongest self already exists within you. The problem is, the weaker self keeps winning the fight. This speech is not about motivation. It's about transformation. By the end, you will know exactly how to kill that weak version once and for all, and unlock the unstoppable force you were meant to be. Watch till the end, because if you leave halfway, the weaker self wins again. There is a war that no one talks about, yet it rages in every human being. It's not fought with weapons, nor does it leave scars you can see. It's fought in silence, in the spaces between your thoughts, in the moments when you're alone and no one else is watching. This war is between two versions of you, the one that dreams, dares, and pushes forward with relentless determination, and the one that hesitates, doubts, and hides behind excuses. The first version wants to pull you upward, out of mediocrity, into a life of meaning and fulfillment. The second clings to safety, comfort, and familiar routines, even if they're destroying you. Most people live their entire lives without realizing this battle exists. They think life is just happening to them, that they are merely reacting to circumstances, when in reality, they are constantly choosing which version of themselves will take control. Every single choice you make, what you do in the morning, how you respond to setbacks, whether you keep going when things get hard, feeds one of these versions. The strong version is built through consistent effort, uncomfortable decisions, and moments where you do what you know is right, even when it's the last thing you feel like doing. The weak version is fed through procrastination, distraction, excuses, and surrendering to fear. The silent danger is that the weak version doesn't show up as a villain. It's far more subtle. It disguises itself as rational thinking. You can start tomorrow. You're too tired today. You deserve a break. This is too risky. It's better to be safe. It whispers these lines in a gentle voice, making them feel like truth, when in reality, they are chains. It convinces you that not trying is better than failing, and so you stop before you even begin. You don't realize it, but every time you obey that voice, you strengthen the weak version, and you weaken the one that could have made you unstoppable. The most dangerous part is how comfortable it feels to let the weaker self lead. It doesn't demand much from you. It doesn't ask you to endure pain, face criticism, or step into the unknown. It offers a slow, quiet life where you avoid the sting of failure. But what it really does is rob you of every ounce of potential you were born with. It keeps you alive, but not truly living. You may think you're avoiding pain, but you're only exchanging one kind of pain for another, the dull ache of never becoming who you were meant to be. If you've ever felt that restless frustration inside you, that quiet dissatisfaction with yourself, it's because the stronger self is calling out, begging for its chance to lead. You might feel it when you imagine a bigger life, when you think of a skill you could master or a dream you could chase. In those moments, you glimpse what you could be. But as quickly as the thought appears, the weaker version jumps in to smother it with reasons why it's not realistic or too late or not worth the risk. And the tragic thing is, most people listen to that voice until their last breath, never realizing it was a lie. Killing the weak version of yourself is not about becoming ruthless with others. It's about becoming ruthless with yourself. It's about catching that moment when the weaker self speaks and refusing to give it power. It's about recognizing that the voice of fear, laziness, and doubt is not you. It's the shadow of you. The real you, the one with potential beyond your current comprehension, lives beneath that shadow, waiting for you to step forward and claim your life. This is why self-discipline is so powerful. It's the weapon you use in this silent war. Every time you choose action over excuse, you stab at the heart of the weaker self. Every time you push through discomfort, you feed the stronger self. The weak version of you cannot survive without your cooperation. It cannot exist unless you keep giving it permission to lead. And that means you have more power than you think, because the moment you decide to stop obeying it, it begins to die. But understand this: killing that version of yourself is not a one-time act. It's not a dramatic single moment of transformation. It is a daily execution. Every morning you wake up, it's there, waiting for you to take the easy route, the familiar path, the option that requires less from you. Every evening, it judges your choices and grows or shrinks based on what you fed it that day. This battle never truly ends, but it does get easier as the stronger version gains momentum. The most inspiring truth is that every choice, no matter how small, is a step in one direction or the other. When you choose to wake up on time, to keep your promises, to put in the work when no one is watching, you're not just doing tasks, you're reshaping your identity. You're making it harder for the weaker self to survive. And when you keep doing this long enough, there comes a moment when you realize that the weaker self no longer has the same grip on you. It may still whisper, but its voice is faint, powerless against the strength you've built. The silent battle within is the greatest fight of your life, because if you lose it, you lose everything else. But if you win, you don't just achieve goals, you become the kind of person who can face life head-on, without flinching, without retreating. The world has enough people who have surrendered to their weaker selves. It needs more people who have the courage to kill that part and unleash the full force of who they are. And that battle, it begins now, in this very moment, with the next choice you make. Comfort is a seduction. It whispers to you in ways that feel kind, even loving, as if it has your best interests at heart. It tells you, you've done enough for today. Take it easy. You deserve to rest. And sometimes rest is necessary. But more often, comfort becomes a trap disguised as care. It is the soft bed that makes you miss the sunrise, the warm room that keeps you from stepping out into the cold where growth waits for you, the familiar routine that ensures nothing ever changes. The weak version of you thrives here, feeding off the certainty, the predictability, the absence of risk. But in the same breath, the strong version of you begins to starve. The truth is, comfort is the enemy of growth, because growth cannot happen without resistance. A muscle does not get stronger without being torn. A seed does not become a tree without breaking through the soil. You cannot become more than you are without challenging what you've always been. But comfort demands the opposite. It demands you remain still, unshaken, unmoved. It tells you that what you have now is enough, even if deep down you know it's not. It tells you that what you have now is enough, even if deep down you know it's not. It tells you that chasing more is dangerous, exhausting, unnecessary. And if you listen long enough, it will convince you to settle for a life half-lived. You see, the weak version of you doesn't need you to fail spectacularly. It just needs you to never try. It doesn't push you into disaster. It simply keeps you looping in the same safe cycle until the years blur together and the fire inside you dies quietly. Comfort is not always about luxury or leisure. It can be the mind-numbing security of doing what you've always done, surrounding yourself with the same people, thinking the same thoughts, sticking to the same habits. It's the silent agreement you make with yourself that you won't venture too far from what's familiar, because unfamiliar territory requires courage, and courage is dangerous to the weak self. The problem with comfort is that it lies about the cost. It makes you think that by avoiding discomfort, you're avoiding pain. But what you're really doing is trading short-term discomfort for long-term suffering. Yes, stepping into the gym when you're tired is uncomfortable. Saying no to distractions when you want to be entertained is uncomfortable. Facing rejection, criticism, or failure is uncomfortable. But living a life where you never see what you're truly capable of, that's a deeper kind of pain, one that gnaws at you quietly, year after year, until regret becomes your companion. The strong version of yourself doesn't live in comfort zones. It uses them as checkpoints. It knows that comfort has its place, but only as a temporary resting ground, not a permanent home. To grow, you must move toward what feels uncertain, toward challenges that demand more of you than you think you have to give. It's in those moments, when you're sweating, shaking, second-guessing yourself, that the stronger self steps forward and begins to take control. But here's the catch. The weak version will always fight for comfort. It will present logical arguments for why you should wait, why now isn't the right time, why you need more preparation before you take action. And on the surface, these arguments seem reasonable. That's what makes comfort such a dangerous enemy. It doesn't attack you head on, it negotiates with you. It makes you feel like you're making wise, careful decisions, when in truth you're just protecting yourself from the very challenges that would transform you. And how much is done because it's necessary for your growth. If most of your choices lean toward easy, you're feeding the weak self without realizing it. And the longer you feed it, the harder it becomes to break free. Because comfort, like a drug, builds dependence. The more you have, the more you crave, and the less you believe you can survive without it. The only way to weaken its grip is to deliberately seek discomfort, to intentionally do the things that scare you, challenge you, and stretch you. This doesn't mean living recklessly. It means choosing paths that require courage. It means taking that opportunity even if you don't feel ready. It means speaking up even if your voice shakes. It means putting yourself in situations where failure is possible, but growth is certain. Every time you step out of comfort, you send a signal to your stronger self that you are willing to fight for it. There will be moments when you feel the pull of comfort so strongly that every cell in your body wants to give in. And sometimes you will. But the goal is to notice it, to catch yourself in the act, and to remind yourself that comfort is never free. It comes at the cost of the life you could have lived. The strongest people in the world are not those who never feel tempted by comfort. They are those who feel it deeply and choose growth anyway. If you want to kill the weak version of yourself, you must stop giving it the perfect environment to thrive. That means breaking patterns. That means doing the thing you've been avoiding. That means leaving behind situations, habits, and even people who keep you comfortable but stagnant. You have to see comfort for what it truly is, a beautifully decorated cage. The walls may be warm, the bed soft, the view familiar, but it is still a prison. And every day you stay inside, you give up a little more of your strength. Step outside, and yes, the air will be colder. The ground will be uneven. The path will be uncertain, but it's out there in the wind and struggle that the stronger self begins to breathe. And once you taste that air, once you see what you are capable of beyond the boundaries of comfort, you'll never want to go back. Because comfort might keep you safe, but growth will set you free. There is a unique kind of pain that doesn't come from losing someone, failing a task, or suffering a setback. It comes from looking at yourself and realizing you could have done more but didn't. It comes from knowing you were capable, yet you chose the easier road. This is the weight of self-betrayal, and it is heavier than any burden the world can put on your shoulders. You can heal from heartbreak, recover from financial loss, and rebuild after failure, but the quiet ache of betraying your own potential stays with you, haunting every achievement, every silent moment, every reflection in the mirror. When you betray yourself, you don't do it all at once. It happens in small, seemingly harmless moments. You skip the workout just this once. You avoid the difficult conversation because it's uncomfortable. You delay working on your dream project because you don't feel ready. At the time, these choices feel insignificant, but they stack up like bricks, building a wall between who you are and who you could have been. And one day you wake up and realize the wall is so high that you can't even see the version of yourself you once dreamed of becoming. The weak version of you thrives on these betrayals. It knows that you can endure a lot of external challenges, but it also knows you can't hide from yourself. So it chips away at your self-respect, one compromise at a time, until you no longer believe you're the kind of person who follows through, who dares, who demands more from life. And once that belief is gone, it becomes even easier to betray yourself, because now you expect less from yourself. The tragedy is that most people think the pain of effort is worse than the pain of self-betrayal. They tell themselves, it's not that big of a deal, I'll do it tomorrow, this won't matter in the long run. But it does matter, because every time you choose comfort over commitment, every time you make excuses instead of progress, you're teaching yourself that your own word means nothing. You're showing yourself that you can't be trusted, not by others, but by you. And here's the brutal truth. No success, no external validation, no recognition from the world can replace the self-respect you lose when you know you didn't give your best. You can win awards, earn money, and receive praise. But if deep down you know you held back, those victories will feel hollow. It's not the world's approval that makes you proud. It's the knowledge that you faced resistance, pushed through it, and refused to betray yourself. The strong version of you is born in the exact moments when betrayal is easiest. It's in the moment you want to quit, but take one more step. It's in the moment you want to lie to yourself, but instead face the truth. It's in the moment you want to hide, but choose to show up. Each of these decisions builds trust in yourself, layer by layer, until you become someone you can rely on no matter what. That trust is the foundation of confidence. Without it, every attempt at growth will be shaky, because you won't believe in your own ability to follow through. You have to ask yourself, how many times have you promised yourself something and not delivered? How many times have you said, this time will be different, and then fallen into the same pattern? Every one of those moments leaves a mark. You might bury it under distractions, justify it with excuses, or numb it with temporary pleasures, but it's still there. And the only way to heal it is to start keeping promises to yourself again. Not just the big ones, the small ones matter even more because they happen daily. Self-betrayal doesn't just steal your dreams, it erodes your spirit. It creates a quiet cynicism toward yourself. You start doubting your own words, your own plans. And when you doubt yourself, you hesitate. And when you hesitate, you lose opportunities. This is how people end up living lives that are smaller than their potential. It's not that they weren't capable, it's that they couldn't trust themselves to act when it mattered. Killing the weak version of yourself requires ending this cycle of betrayal. It means drawing a line saying, no more. It means deciding that your own word is sacred, even if no one else knows the promises you've made. It means holding yourself to the same standard you'd expect from someone you deeply respect. If you wouldn't tolerate constant lies and broken commitments from a friend, why tolerate them from yourself? The process is simple but not easy. You start by identifying the small ways you let yourself down. You become aware of them without judgment, because awareness is the first step to change. Then you choose one thing, just one, and you commit to doing it no matter what. You keep that promise to yourself, even when you're tired, even when it's inconvenient, even when no one would blame you for quitting. And then you build from there, stacking small victories until you've rebuilt your trust in yourself. And something powerful happens when you stop betraying yourself. You stop living in shame. You stop carrying the invisible weight of knowing you could have done better. You walk into each day with a quiet, unshakable confidence, not because you're perfect, but because you know you can count on yourself to show up. That is the essence of strength. That is the foundation upon which you can build anything. Self-betrayal is the weapon the weak version of you uses to keep you small. Self-trust is the shield the strong version uses to protect your potential. The choice between them happens every single day in moments so small they're easy to overlook. But those moments are everything, because your life is nothing more than the sum of them. If you want to unleash your true potential, you must stop breaking the silent promises you make to yourself, because the moment you keep them, the weight of self-betrayal begins to lift, and the stronger version of you finally steps forward, ready to lead. Pain is the dividing line between those who stay the same and those who transform. Most people spend their lives running from it, avoiding discomfort, sidestepping challenges, distracting themselves whenever life becomes too heavy. They see pain as the enemy, a signal to stop, to retreat, to protect themselves from further harm. But the truth is, pain is not here to destroy you. It is here to forge you. It is the furnace where the weak version of you is burned away and the strong version is shaped, tempered, and made unbreakable. The weak version of you fears pain because it only understands the surface of it. It sees the sting, the discomfort, the tears, and it assumes that nothing good can come from such feelings. It craves pleasure, ease, and certainty, and so it will do anything to escape the burn of hardship. But in doing so, it also escapes the lessons, the resilience, and the depth of character that only pain can give. You cannot build strength without resistance, and resistance, by its very nature, is uncomfortable. Think of any time you've grown in your life, truly grown, not just gotten older or gained more experience, but become more capable, more grounded, more alive. That transformation did not happen in moments of ease. It happened when you were tested. It happened when something broke you open, when you were forced to adapt, when you had no choice but to face reality as it was, not as you wished it to be. Pain strips away illusions. It reveals who you really are when everything comfortable has been taken from you. But here's where the shift must happen. Instead of seeing pain as a signal to stop, you must learn to see it as a signal to lean in. Every time you face discomfort and stay with it, you strengthen the part of you that can handle life as it comes. The strong version of yourself uses pain as fuel. It asks, what is this trying to teach me? How can I use this? Instead of running, it studies the pain. Instead of shrinking, it expands within it. Pain is a teacher unlike any other because it doesn't just give you theories, it gives you transformation through experience. Reading about resilience is one thing. Losing something you thought you couldn't live without and finding out you can still stand is another. Talking about courage is easy. Facing rejection, humiliation, or failure and coming back stronger is the real lesson. Pain doesn't care about your image, your comfort, or your excuses. It cares only about one thing, making you stronger if you're willing to endure the process. But there is a reason so many never discover the gift pain holds. They try to numb it. They bury it under distractions, addictions, or false positivity. They convince themselves that ignoring it is the same as overcoming it. But unprocessed pain doesn't disappear. It festers. It quietly shapes your choices, your habits, and your beliefs about yourself. And in this way, avoiding pain allows the weak version of you to remain in control. Killing that weaker self means learning to face pain directly without flinching. It means allowing yourself to feel the discomfort fully, not because you enjoy it, but because you understand it's the pathway to becoming who you were meant to be. This doesn't mean seeking unnecessary suffering. It means not hiding from the suffering that comes with meaningful growth. The pain of discipline, the pain of honesty, the pain of failure, the pain of letting go. These are not signs you're on the wrong path. They are signs you're shedding the old skin, the old self, the old limitations. There is a kind of pain that builds walls and keeps you trapped. And there is a kind of pain that tears those walls down and frees you. The difference lies in whether you resist it or embrace it. When you resist pain, you stay stuck in it. When you embrace it, you move through it and come out transformed. The strong version of you knows that the faster you confront pain, the faster you grow beyond it. It's not just about enduring hardship, it's about letting hardship refine you. Pain forces you to confront the parts of yourself that you ignore when life is easy. It exposes the lies you tell yourself, the habits you hide behind, the illusions you cling to. It is uncomfortable because it is honest. And when you stop running from it, you stop running from the truth. That is when change begins. The most powerful transformations happen when you decide that pain will not be the thing that breaks you, but the thing that builds you. When you no longer ask, how can I avoid this? But instead, how can I rise through this? That mindset alone kills a massive part of the weak self, because the weak self can only exist in a person who believes they must be protected from hardship. Once you embrace pain as part of the process, you take away its power to control you. You will not find greatness in the absence of struggle. You will not unlock your true potential without first walking through the fire. Every trial you face is an invitation to meet the stronger self within you. Every setback is a chance to sharpen your focus, deepen your discipline, and increase your capacity to endure. Pain is not the punishment, it is the forge. And every time you choose to face it instead of flee from it, you hammer away at the chains that keep the weak version alive. Over time, those chains break. And when they do, you will look back on the pain you once feared and realize, over time, those chains break. And when they do, you will look back on the pain you once feared and realize it was never there to destroy you. It was there to introduce you to the person you were always meant to be. You are not fixed. You are not carved into stone, destined to be the same person tomorrow that you are today. Your identity is not a prison. It's a choice. And yet, most people live as if who they are right now is all they will ever be. They cling to their habits, their patterns, their stories about themselves as if these things define them permanently. This is just who I am, they say, and in that single sentence, they lock the door and throw away the key. But the truth is, who you are is a reflection of what you've repeatedly chosen, and you can choose differently at any moment. The weak version of you wants you to believe you are fixed, because if you believe that, you won't try to change. It wants you to wear your flaws like a permanent badge. It tells you that your lack of discipline is just part of your personality, that your fears are just how you've always been, that your limitations are just reality. It frames change as something impossible or reserved for others, because as long as you believe you can't change, you'll never threaten its existence. But the strong version of you knows that identity is fluid. It knows that every action you take is casting a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. When you choose to act with discipline, even once, you're not just doing a task, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who follows through. When you face fear head-on, you're building the identity of someone courageous. When you make sacrifices for a greater goal, you're becoming someone who values growth over comfort. Every choice shapes you, whether you're aware of it or not. Think about the stories you tell yourself about who you are. Maybe you've said, I'm not a morning person, or I'm bad with money, or I'm not confident. Every time you repeat that story, you reinforce it. Even if it's not truly who you are, it's just who you've been. And yet you have the power to rewrite that narrative at any time. The key is to act in alignment with the version of yourself. You want to become not the version you've been up until now. Identity change doesn't happen in your head. It happens in your actions. You can tell yourself you're disciplined, but until you act with discipline, it's just a fantasy. You can tell yourself you're resilient, but until you keep going when things get hard, it's just a wish. The strong version of you emerges not from thinking differently alone, but from proving to yourself over and over through action that you are becoming someone new. This is why killing the weak version of yourself is so critical. It's not just about removing bad habits, it's about removing the identity that those habits belong to. If you see yourself as someone who quits when it's hard, you will quit. If you see yourself as someone who procrastinates, you will procrastinate. But if you begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, the thought of quitting will feel wrong, out of place, because it no longer aligns with who you believe you are. You have to understand that the identity you hold is self-reinforcing. Your beliefs create your actions. Your actions create your results, and your results confirm your beliefs. If you believe you're weak, you will act in ways that prove yourself right. But the moment you shift that belief and begin to act in ways that support the stronger version of you, you create a new cycle, one where every action builds more confidence, more discipline, more strength. It starts small. You don't have to declare a total reinvention overnight. You just start making choices as if you were already the person you want to become. You start walking like them, speaking like them, making decisions like them. At first, it feels forced, but over time, it begins to feel natural because you're training your mind and body to accept this new identity as reality. The beauty of this truth is that no matter how long you've been living as the weaker version of yourself, you can decide right now to become someone different. You can choose the identity of a disciplined person, a resilient person, a focused person, a person who doesn't give in to fear. You don't need permission, and you don't need the world to agree with you. You just need to start acting as if it's already true. The weak version will try to pull you back with the past. It will remind you of the times you failed, the times you quit, the times you didn't live up to your own standards. It will try to convince you that because you were that person before, you must always be that person. But the past is only a description of what you did. It is not a decree of who you must be. The strong version of you knows that the future is unwritten and that every day is a chance to choose again. The real danger is not in failing to change quickly. It's in never trying to change at all because you've accepted a false identity as truth. The weak self survives on that acceptance. The strong self thrives when you reject it. You are never locked in unless you decide to be. And the moment you choose otherwise, you've already taken the first step toward becoming someone entirely new. Killing the weak version of yourself begins with killing the idea that you're stuck with them. Identity is not inherited, it's built. And if you built the weaker self, you can just as surely build the stronger one. The only question is, which one will you start building today? If you truly want to kill the weak version of yourself, you must starve it. And the way you starve it is by taking away the things that keep it alive, the habits, the distractions, the toxic comforts that allow it to thrive. This is the part most people avoid because it means giving up what feels safe, familiar, and easy. Sacrifice is the price of transformation. And it's a price many are unwilling to pay. They want to become stronger without losing anything, but you cannot step into the stronger version of yourself while still feeding the weaker one. The weak version of you survives on convenience. It thrives when you keep scrolling, when you choose the couch over the gym, when you say yes to things that pull you away from your purpose. It feeds on instant gratification, on choosing what feels good now, instead of what will make you great later. Every time you give in to those impulses, you're placing food on its table, and as long as it's well fed, it will keep coming back stronger, undermining every effort you make to rise above it. Sacrifice means removing those comforts even when they seem harmless. It's not just about eliminating bad habits, it's about cutting away anything that keeps you small. Maybe it's the group of friends who never want to do anything ambitious. Maybe it's the TV shows you binge to escape the reality of your goals. Maybe it's the late nights that steal your energy for the next day. You might tell yourself these things are just part of life, but in truth, they are anchors keeping you from moving forward. Sacrifice is not punishment, it's a trade. You give up something of lesser value to gain something of greater value. You give up hours of mindless entertainment for hours of building your skills. You give up the comfort of sleeping in for the power of starting your day on your own terms. You give up the security of staying in your comfort zone for the exhilaration of living with purpose. The weak version of you sees sacrifice as loss. The strong version sees it as investment. At first, it will feel like you're taking away too much. The weak self will scream at you, telling you that you're being too harsh, that you deserve to relax, that you shouldn't have to work so hard. This is exactly why the sacrifice is necessary, because that voice is not you, it's the part of you that wants to keep you where you are. The more you give into it, the stronger it gets. The more you resist it, the weaker it becomes. Sacrifice also means being willing to let go of parts of your identity that no longer serve you. If you've always been the person who jokes about never being disciplined, you have to kill that version. If you've always been the person who avoids responsibility, you have to bury that version. This can be harder than giving up physical habits because it means confronting the way you've defined yourself for years. But you can't become the stronger self while clinging to a self-image built on weakness. You have to ask yourself a hard question. What am I willing to give up to become who I want to be? Not just what sounds easy to give up, but what will actually hurt to let go of. Because true sacrifice will sting. It will feel like a part of you is dying. And that's exactly what's happening. The part of you that has been holding you back is dying. The more you resist this process, the longer it takes. The more you embrace it, the faster you grow. Some people wait for life to force them into sacrifice, waiting for a health scare before changing their habits, waiting for a breakup before working on themselves, waiting for a financial crisis before taking their careers seriously. But by then, the price is far higher than it needed to be. Choosing sacrifice voluntarily is how you take control of the process. It's how you decide instead of being forced. Sacrifice is also a constant practice. You don't do it once and then coast forever. You will always face moments where you must decide between what's easy and what's right for your future. The strong version of you doesn't stop sacrificing. It just becomes better at doing it without hesitation. Over time, the things you once saw as painful to give up will feel irrelevant because you'll have replaced them with things that truly matter. The beautiful thing about sacrifice is that it always gives back more than it takes if you stay committed long enough. The hours you give up to train your mind and body come back as confidence and capability. The relationships you let go of create space for people who push you higher. The distractions you remove free up the focus you need to build the life you've been dreaming of. Killing the weak version of yourself is not about being cruel to yourself. It's about refusing to negotiate with the parts of you that keep you from your potential. And the weapon you use is sacrifice. Every time you choose to give up what feeds your weakness, you take another step toward the stronger, more capable version of yourself. And eventually, the old self has nothing left to survive on. It withers away, leaving only the person you were always meant to be. The weak version of you lives and dies by emotion. It waits for the perfect mood before taking action. If it feels motivated, it moves. If it feels tired, it stops. If it feels uncertain, it delays. It's like a ship that only sails when the wind blows in its favor, drifting endlessly when the conditions aren't right. This is why it never reaches its destination, because life rarely delivers perfect conditions. The strong version of you operates by a different principle. It doesn't ask, do I feel like it? It asks, did I commit to it? And then it acts regardless of emotion. That principle is called discipline, and it's the executioner of the weaker self. Discipline is the force that severs the tie between your feelings and your actions. It is the decision to do what needs to be done, whether you want to or not. It doesn't bargain with laziness, doesn't negotiate with fear. It doesn't care if you're tired, uninspired, or distracted. Discipline moves you forward anyway. And this is exactly why the weak version of you fears it, because the moment discipline takes over, weakness loses control. Most people think discipline is about being strict or harsh with yourself. But it's not about punishment, it's about freedom. Without discipline, you are a slave to your moods, your impulses, your cravings. You are pulled in every direction by whatever emotion happens to hit you in the moment. But with discipline, you take back control. You decide the direction. You decide the pace. You decide what gets done. The weak self hates that because it thrives when you live on impulse. Discipline is not something you suddenly wake up with. It is something you train, like a muscle. Every time you follow through on something you said you'd do, you strengthen it. Every time you show up despite not feeling like it, you reinforce it. And the more disciplined you become, the less influence your emotions have over your actions. This doesn't mean you stop feeling tired, afraid, or unmotivated. It means those feelings lose the power to dictate your life. The weak version of you will always try to convince you that you should wait until you feel ready. It will say, let's start tomorrow, or let's do it when things calm down, or Let's wait for inspiration. It uses delay as a weapon. But the strong version knows that waiting is a trap. If you only act when it's convenient, you'll rarely act at all. Discipline cuts through that lie by making action non-negotiable. You don't brush your teeth only when you feel like it. You do it because it's part of who you are. The same must become true for the habits that will build your stronger self. At first, discipline feels heavy, almost unnatural. You will resist it. You will resent it. But over time, it becomes lighter because it becomes part of your identity. The strong version of you doesn't drag itself to the gym. It goes because that's simply what it does. It doesn't force itself to work on its craft. It works because that's who it is. And that shift from forcing yourself to simply being the kind of person who does the work is where transformation locks in. The real beauty of discipline is that it compounds. Small acts of follow-through build trust in yourself. That trust turns into confidence, and that confidence fuels bigger actions. The stronger your discipline, the less effort it takes to push through resistance. Eventually, the weak self doesn't even have space to speak. It's drowned out by the momentum you've built. But discipline demands consistency. It's not something you can turn on and off depending on your mood. The moment you start making exceptions for the sake of comfort, you feed the weak self again. That's why the strong version protects its routines and commitments fiercely. It doesn't allow a skipped day to become a skipped week. It doesn't allow just this once to become every time it's hard. There's also a truth about discipline that many overlook. It's not only about doing what's hard, it's about doing what matters. The weak version can sometimes push you to work hard, but on the wrong things, wasting effort, and calling it progress. True discipline means aligning your effort with your purpose, ensuring that the actions you repeat daily are the ones that move you toward the person you want to become. When you embrace discipline fully, something remarkable happens. You stop relying on motivation altogether. Motivation becomes a bonus, not a requirement. You'll still enjoy it when it's there, but you'll no longer wait for it. You'll no longer be at the mercy of fleeting feelings. You'll act because you said you would. And in that simple truth lies the death of the weaker self. Discipline is not glamorous. It's not loud or dramatic. It's the quiet, relentless force that dismantles excuses and builds character brick by brick. And over time, it transforms you into someone unrecognizable to your past self. Not because of one huge change, but because of countless small acts of showing up when you didn't want to. That's when you realize that the weak version of you didn't die in some epic battle. It simply starved to death because you stopped feeding it with inaction and hesitation. Once discipline becomes your standard, the strong self doesn't just emerge, it stays. And the old self, the one that needed motivation to move, becomes nothing more than a shadow you've long since outgrown. The easiest person to lie to is yourself. You can dress it up as optimism, call it patience, even convince yourself it's self-care, but deep down, you know when you're not telling the truth. Weakness thrives in those lies. It whispers, you're doing your best when you know you're barely trying. It says, you deserve a break when you haven't earned one. It convinces you that circumstances are to blame, that timing is wrong, that someone else has it easier. And as long as you accept those lies, the weak version of you will always have the upper hand. The strongest self you can become is born in ruthless self-honesty, the kind that leaves no space for excuses, no room for self-deception. Ruthless self-honesty is not about beating yourself down or wallowing in guilt. It's about looking at your life with eyes unclouded by excuses and seeing exactly where you're falling short. It's standing in front of the mirror and asking, if I keep living like this, where will I be in 5 years, and not looking away when you don't like the answer? It's admitting that the gap between where you are and where you want to be is made up of choices, your choices. Most people run from that level of honesty because it's uncomfortable. It's much easier to tell yourself that the reason you're not where you want to be is because of bad luck, unfair circumstances, or other people's actions. That way you can feel like a victim instead of taking responsibility. But the problem with playing the victim is that it also means giving up your power. If it's always someone else's fault, then you're powerless to change anything. The moment you own the truth that you have played a role in your own stagnation, you take that power back. The weak version of you will fight against this truth because it knows what comes next. Once you admit to yourself that you've been the one holding you back, there's no one else to blame. There's no shield of denial to hide behind. You are forced to confront the fact that your life is a reflection of your habits, your decisions, and your standards. That realization can feel like a punch to the gut, but it's also the first breath of freedom. Ruthless self-honesty works like a spotlight in a dark room. At first, it reveals all the mess you've been ignoring, the missed opportunities, the wasted time, the patterns of avoidance. It's tempting to switch the light off again, to go back into the comfort of ignorance. But if you leave it on, you also start to see something else. The space to clean up, to rebuild, to create something better. You can't fix what you refuse to acknowledge, and you can't transform into the strong version of yourself without first exposing the cracks in the foundation. This kind of honesty requires stripping away all the narratives you've built to protect yourself. The stories that say, "I just don't have time," when in reality you waste hours on meaningless distractions. The ones that say, "I'm just not the type of person who's disciplined," when really you've never committed long enough to see change. The ones that say, "I'm trying my best," when deep down you know you're settling for far less than you're capable of. When you drop those stories, you're left with the raw truth. And that's where real growth begins. It's important to understand that self-honesty is not an event. It's a practice. You don't have one breakthrough moment of clarity and then suddenly live in perfect truth forever. The weak self will always try to creep back in with new justifications, new rationalizations. That's why you must regularly check in with yourself, asking the hard questions. Am I really giving my all? Am I avoiding something because it's uncomfortable? Am I making choices that align with the future I say I want? There's a strange paradox here. The more honest you are with yourself, the less you fear failure. That's because failure, when met with honesty, becomes feedback instead of a verdict. You can look at your mistakes without ego, learn from them, and adjust. The weak self avoids honesty because it wants to protect its pride. It would rather stay blind than admit fault. The strong self welcomes honesty because it values progress more than comfort. Self-honesty also transforms your relationship with discipline. When you stop lying to yourself about why you're not consistent, you stop waiting for motivation to magically appear. You see clearly that the only thing standing between you and action is your own decision to act. That realization is both humbling and empowering. It strips away the illusion that some external force is in control, leaving only you and your choices. This level of honesty can be brutal, but it's never cruel. It's an act of respect toward yourself, a refusal to treat your potential as something to be wasted. Pretending you're doing fine when you're not isn't kindness, it's sabotage. The strongest, most compassionate thing you can do for yourself is to stop hiding from the truth and start living by it. When you practice ruthless self-honesty long enough, something shifts. You stop fearing the truth because you know it's the fastest route to change. You stop needing external validation because you trust your own assessment. You stop letting the weak version of yourself win because you can see it for what it is. A collection of excuses and half-truths that dissolve the moment you shine a light on them. And once you live in truth, the weak self has nowhere to hide. It can't survive in the open, can't feed on denial, can't manipulate you with comforting lies. It dies quietly, replaced by the person you were always capable of becoming, the one who faces reality head-on and uses it as the foundation for strength. When you finally kill the weak version of yourself, it's not just an internal shift. It's as if the world itself begins to respond differently to you. The way people see you changes, the way opportunities present themselves changes, even the way you carry yourself changes. The death of the old self is not the end of the story. It's the start of a life that feels entirely new. It's like stepping out of a cramped, dimly lit room you thought was the whole world, only to discover an open landscape stretching endlessly in every direction. The weak version of you lived by fear and hesitation, and so your life reflected those limitations. Every decision was filtered through the question, what might go wrong? But when that part of you dies, that question is replaced by a different one. What might be possible? That small shift opens doors you didn't even know were there. Opportunities that once felt too risky now feel like challenges you're ready to take on. Conversations you once avoided because you feared judgment become invitations for growth. Life itself starts to expand to match the strength you now carry. People around you will notice. They may not be able to explain it, but they'll sense it. They'll feel the difference in the way you speak, the way you move, the way you handle challenges. Strength has a presence. It doesn't need to announce itself. It simply is. And that presence draws opportunities toward you, not because luck suddenly found you, but because you've become the kind of person who acts decisively when opportunity knocks, and that energy changes everything. The most surprising part is how your relationship with fear changes. The weak version of you spent its life trying to avoid fear, thinking the goal was to live without it. But the strong version understands that fear is not the enemy, it's a compass. The things you fear often point directly to the things you need to face in order to grow. So instead of running from fear, you start moving toward it, knowing that it marks the path to your next breakthrough. Freedom is the ultimate reward of killing the weak self. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from the invisible chains you've been carrying, chains made of doubt, procrastination, and low standards. You realize you are no longer negotiating with yourself to do the bare minimum. You no longer waste energy deciding whether to do what needs to be done. You just do it, and that frees your mind for bigger things. This new life isn't perfect. There will still be setbacks, there'll still be challenges, but the way you respond to them is completely different. The weak self crumbled under adversity because it saw every setback as proof of failure. The strong self sees setbacks as proof of failure. The strong self sees setbacks as proof that it's on the right path, because nothing worth having comes without resistance. You stop seeing challenges as walls and start seeing them as weights, tools to make you stronger. And perhaps the most powerful part of all is that once you kill the weak version of yourself, you stop living in survival mode and start living in creation mode. You're no longer just trying to get through the day, you're building something bigger than yourself. You start setting bolder goals, chasing bigger dreams, and refusing to settle for anything that doesn't align with the person you've become. This victory is not loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or cheering crowds. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable. It's in the way you wake up in the morning knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. It's in the way you can look in the mirror without flinching. It's in the way you can look back at the person you used to be and feel nothing but gratitude for the fact that you didn't stay there. When the weak version of you dies, your life doesn't just improve, it transforms. The possibilities you once thought were for other people become your reality. You become someone who no longer needs to be pushed, who no longer waits for permission, who no longer doubts their own strength. And that is the true potential that was waiting for you all along. The death of the old self isn't an ending. It's the birth of the life you were always meant to live. Here we are, at the edge of the cliff, where the old self stands trembling, and the true self waits on the other side. You've seen its face, the weak version of you. You know its voice, the one that talks you out of your own greatness. And you know now that it will not simply walk away on its own. It must be ended deliberately and completely, because as long as it lives, it will pull you back into mediocrity. The life you want will not be given to you. It will not arrive in a moment of inspiration or in a stroke of luck. It will be forged, hammered in the fire of your discipline, shaped by the blows of your choices and cooled in the waters of relentless truth. Every step forward will demand you leave behind a piece of that weaker self until nothing of it remains. Killing that version of yourself is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of liberation. It is the breaking of chains you didn't even realize you were wearing. It is choosing to stop living half a life and instead claim the full power, depth, and beauty of what you are capable of. From this point forward, the question is no longer can you. The question is, will you? Will you meet yourself in the mirror tomorrow and see the same excuses, the same hesitation, the same half-hearted attempts? Or will you see the glimmer of the person you've decided to become, the one who moves without waiting, who acts without begging for courage, who creates without asking permission? The clock is ticking. The world will not wait for you to decide. Either you kill the weak version now, or you watch it slowly kill the life you were meant to live. Stand up, take the knife of truth, and cut it away without mercy. And when you do, you will discover something extraordinary, that the stronger self you've been searching for was never out there. It was always here, waiting the whole time, for you to be brave enough to let it live. This transformation is not about becoming someone you're not. It's about stripping away everything that has been suffocating who you really are. The stronger self was always in you, buried under layers of excuses, comfort, and self-doubt. When you remove those layers, what emerges is not a stranger, but a truer version of yourself. You begin to act with a kind of clarity and confidence that doesn't come from pretending to be fearless. It comes from having faced your own weaknesses and defeated them. The victory beyond the death of the old self is not just about external achievements, though those often follow. It's about the way you start to trust yourself again. For years, the weak self trained you to doubt your own word. You'd set goals and break them, make promises to yourself and fail to keep them. Make promises to yourself and fail to keep them. That erodes trust, not with others, but with yourself. But when you live as the strong version, every time you follow through, you rebuild that trust. And once you trust yourself deeply, there's very little in life that can truly shake you.